Good morning again, Rabbi.
Morning, Joe.
Reduce speed. That's a message for all of us at times. I often wonder about unintended consequences. When we do something and we think we're doing a good deed, it's important to slow down and recognize what could happen as a result of this one little action. Isn't that true for all of us? Does the Torah talk about that?
Yeah, Joe, it's not even doing a good deed. It's anything that we do where we have a decision. We have lots of decisions to make throughout the day. Should I do this? Should I go there for lunch? Should I meet this person? Should I not meet this person? We'll constantly have decisions to make. And the Talmud always emphasizes being thoughtful and thinking about the results of your action. Now, it's really easy to point to government and war and global stuff and talk about, oh, that was a look at what happened. You thought it was a good or didn't. No, let's take a look then at our lives, at things that we have done without thinking of where it'll go, where it'll lead us. Why do they have to put up a sign, reduce speed? There's a hill, there's a grade. What are the consequences of going around a curve too fast? We hear that news as an accident, or plane crashes, pilot error, driver error. Well, I'm looking at stuff and someone took his private plane up in questionable weather. Person was flying up his plane and he wasn't instrument rated. And the weather forecast said it's going to turn. And it's not so much an error of lack of skill. It's I didn't think it through. That happens a lot during the holidays.
Oh, I know. There are a lot of baby chicks that are handed out at Easter that turn into chickens.
Yeah, is that an unintended consequence that a chick turns into a chicken? No, chicks turn into chickens. What are you going to do with a chicken living in your house? And you were labeled as an unintended consequence. Well, I meant to have a cute little gift. No, you just didn't think about what you were getting and what would happen tomorrow.
And pets are often victims of this lack of forethought. People buy rabbits for Easter or other holidays, or, oh, it's a cute little bunny. It turns into a big old rabbit. And I can tell you from experience, rabbits make a lot of poop. And taking care of them every day is something that quickly becomes a drudgery. So you have to really love and want a pet like that to have to deal with it. And most people aren't prepared.
And then what we do is we label that and we say to each other, well, that was an unintended consequence. No, there's no such thing as an unintended consequence. You have to stop and say, now, maybe I didn't foresee all the potential, all the things that could happen. That's possible. There's things that I never thought of. But now with the internet, you can Google pet rabbit, pet dog. You can put in, people have dogs the size of Shetland ponies, and they say, well, it was such a cute puppy. So it's harder now to get away with our politicians saying something. It's because they don't listen to their committees. It's because you don't form a group of people and sit down and say, we want to widen these roads. We want to create bike lanes. Bike lanes are great. Bikes are now less safe, more being hurt than ever before. And we have bike lanes. And now they're talking about the unintended consequences. Well, we didn't. No, you didn't stop. You didn't get bikers. You didn't get individuals who pointed out, if you're going to put bike lanes in, you have to do A, B, and C. You just did A. And the problem we're having is you didn't complete the process. It was known, you ignored it for whatever reason.
But what about the expression, he who hesitates is lost? Are you saying that we need to add to bureaucracy, that we need to hesitate more? Will anything get done if all we ever do is sit down and try and pin down exactly what's going to happen when we do something.
No, we don't have to wait to pin down everything. However, we have to sit down and spend some time before we jump in, before we do something. We really love to point to people that were heroes or jumped in or did it, and then totally ignore the 40,000 others that did and ended up in trouble because they didn't sit down and say, well, what are my skills?
So No Child Left Behind is a good example of unintended consequences, at least according to all the teachers I speak to, who say that it's actually worsened STEM scores on the average in their classrooms.
And this wasn't this wasn't an unintended consequence. It was a consequence of not thinking about what they were proposing. There were individuals that said, if we do No Child Left Behind, these things have to be accounted for. We have to provide for these. We have to do this. They were ignored because it would have cost more money, because the people in charge were so full of ego that they believed they were right and everyone else was wrong, but they never analyzed all the ways it could go and what could be done to prevent it from going in the wrong direction. And that's what I'm talking about with unintended consequences. It's full speed ahead, damn the torpedoes, then the ship blows up.
So is it a balance? Do we need to sit down and say, okay, I got a good idea, but I can't foresee everything that's going to happen?
Correct.
And isn't it a good thing sometimes we are pleasantly surprised? We recently got a dog, as I think I pointed out before, and I anticipated a lot of the work that was involved in taking care of a pet. And then I understand it's a long-term commitment of years and years, but the benefits that I did not anticipate far outweighed the chores, the tasks, the obligations. So an unintended consequence of this is how happy he makes our family.
I'm not sure I'd call that an unintended consequence. If most people, when they get a pet, a dog or a cat, more the cuddly holding kind. Some people find snakes which coil around them comforting. So it's much more a matter of, once you have that animal, the benefit of touch and holding is more than you thought it would be. But that's not an unintended consequence of the act. That's the very nature of why you got the dog. You got it to have a companion. It's fulfilling its function. The dog is doing exactly what you thought it would do. You just shortchanged yourself in not realizing how pleasurable it could be. The other piece is weighing the benefit against the burden. Many people don't find the pleasure outweighs the burden.
So are we going to eliminate, let's just try it and see what happens, from our dictionaries? Is it no longer worthwhile to experiment, to explore, to try something without knowing what it will benefit us?
I think if you want to, I have no idea what jumping off a building without a parachute will do. However, I'm not going to ask anyone to take care of me, and I don't expect medical care. Sure, I don't know. I don't think we should stop it. I think, but before we do something, we should just stop and say, I don't know the risks involved in what I'm doing. Am I okay with living what might happen? If you're okay, do it. Jump off the building without a parachute. Pretend you can fly. But then don't call me to visit you in the hospital and be upset because the ground hit you. You decided not to plan. I think we're entitled not to plan. But it's also different, Joe, if it's personal as opposed to the government, as opposed to committees, as opposed to politicians. I think there's a line between doing something carelessly in a cavalier manner what involves other people as opposed to just yourself.
Well, thank you, Rabbi. I will think a lot more before I ask you another question, because I don't want any unintended consequences. The only ones I want are the ones that I can count on, which is your wisdom, your charm, and your good nature.
That's why you should reduce speed. when you're going down an incline, because a vehicle has a lot of momentum.